What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to CHGO Bulls podcast, coming to you live on Tuesday early evening. I am Peck. You can follow me on Twitter at Bulls_Peck, joined by my guys, Big Dave, Bow, BNWL Sports, and Mark K at MK Hoops. Our pal producer, Mr. Greg Braggs, hanging with us behind the scenes until, of course, at some point he will pop into the front of the scenes.
I want him to pop in now. I got a question for him. I want you to pop in right now, Braggs. I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to know, and I really do want to know this. How did it go after Purdue beat Illinois? Like, how did the trash talking go with Cody? How bad did you let him have it?
You know, this time of year, I'm very superstitious, so I'm not one to talk too much trash, because I know what's to come here later in the year. So I was pretty easy on him, to be honest with you. No trash talking to him or Herb Lawrence. If I was going to give that smoke to anybody, it would be Herb Lawrence, though, because he gets pretty lippy with me in studio. But I stayed away from it because then I know, what goes around comes around. The sports gods are always watching, and we know Purdue's got a March Madness dragon to slay. So I kept my lips zipped for one time in my life.
Okay.
See,
so
I feel like you got that backwards, Braggs. You should be talking trash now while you can, because we all know Purdue's going to choke in the tournament, as they always do.
Hey.
This is where I leave the show.
Oh, we love hanging out with our guy Braggs. Gentlemen, crazy day in the NBA today. All kinds of breaking news all over the place. We got a big trade. The Heat making a big swing to bring in Terry Rozier, sending Kyle Lowry to Charlotte. Lowry still might be flipped again before the deadline. We'll see what happens there. Tristan Thompson gets hit with a 25-game suspension, even though he's a guy playing maybe 1.5 minutes off the bench here and there. But the biggest news that I think was jarring to a lot of folks, even though maybe some people felt it coming, is that the Milwaukee Bucks today dismissed their first-year head coach, Adrian Griffin. Woj breaking the news at about 1:30 Central Time this afternoon. Wild stuff. And then if that weren't enough, we also got Woj, and I believe Shams had it first, the update that on top of this Griffin firing, they're naming one of their assistants the interim coach, but they are expected to be in talks with Doc Rivers, who is currently working as a broadcaster. There you see that quote from Shams, has emerged as a serious candidate to become the Bucks' new head coach. Sources tell The Athletic. Woj and Shams actually had conflicting reports after those. Shams, with his article that he put out for The Athletic, suggesting that Doc and the Bucks are, deep into talks already on that job. Woj said that they haven't actually reached out to Doc to talk about him replacing Griffin yet, but this is wild stuff for a team that's 30-13 right now, and is a lock to head to the playoffs in the East. What did you guys make of this move, Big Dave? I'll start with you.
All right. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I love this kind of shit. I love it. They're like, yo, I'm gonna tell you why. Because for me, it's the difference between those teams that are okay with where they are and those teams that are just like, this is just not good enough. I don't care about 30. They don't care about regular season 30-13. If you recall, they were really good last year, weren't they? And they got sent home. So in the first round by a team from the play-in. So it does not matter. I could tell the way they were playing this season that something wasn't connecting. If you were just kind of watching them, they didn't have that same kind of stink on them like I would expect them to have. Because when they got Dame Lillard, I remember doing the show with you fellas. We all thought it was about to be Domination City going on in Milwaukee when you get that kind of guy on your team. We thought it was about to be, oh man, this is about to be probably the most formidable team in the Eastern Conference right here. And they've had some really ugly, bad losses to some teams that they just should not be losing to. And even games that teams were just in, they looked flat. They just didn't look like they were together. It's not the offense, it's the defense. And the Bucks were kind of built on defense, especially if you remember that championship year. They were a defensive team, a defensive juggernaut kind of team. Now, of course, the personnel has changed. You don't have Holiday, of course. That's a big, person that's not there for your squad. And Dame Lillard is not going to help your defense in that kind of situation. But they didn't have that intimidation factor about them. They just really didn't. They didn't have that stank on them that I remember them having on them. Even last year, they kind of had that stank on them. Like, oh, man, this team is formidable. I like it because they're like, this isn't comfortable. And if my best player isn't with it, because when it happened, I immediately said, feels like Giannis. Like, if Giannis is like, I ain't with this, you got to go. That's the rules. My best player is not comfortable with this. You got to go. It's just really that simple. They don't care about the regular season. This is all about the postseason push. I really do enjoy this kind of stuff because it's uncommon, but it's stuff that I wish teams would kind of do more. Honestly, if you're not comfortable with something, and I'm not just saying it for coaches, I'm saying it for players too. If you're not comfortable with that and you kind of see the road you're going down, and you have expectations of championship expectations, you make these moves. The Heat do this stuff all the time. Pat Riley would do this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not working, not comfortable, he'll change it mid-season because it's not working. The Lakers, another team that'll be doing these kind of stuff. What do these teams have in common that I just mentioned? They're always in championship contention. Like, these are the moves that they make when they're trying to do something like this. So, honestly, I have no problem with it. It's a cold business. It's a hard business, and it's harsh, man. But, hey, if your stars ain't comfortable and they're not playing right, you got to make the move.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway. And if you were going to hit on it, Dave, I certainly was. Like, this is I wouldn't say it's all on Giannis because it's not. Seemingly the rest of the locker room weren't maybe aligned with what Griffin was putting out there. So it wasn't just a Giannis thing. But yeah, if Giannis isn't bought in, if Dame isn't bought in, there was reports about Bobby Portis challenging Adrian Griffin a couple of months back as well. So there's been a number of instances whereby, or a number of reports already, like 3 or 4 reports, whereby you get this event, which in the moment when you're scrolling the timeline is shocking, seeing it pop up on like a Woj notification. But then when you take a moment to digest what's actually happened and think through it, as sort of Dave alluded to, all the reasons as to why this kind of makes sense, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I kind of get exactly why we landed in the situation we'd have. But this is so much driven by Adrian Griffin. Like, it's as much as like there's a part of me that wants to not blame Giannis for it, because if he's not vibing with Adrian Griffin, then he's not vibing with Adrian Griffin. And to Dave's point, I think it's the right decision to move on if your best guy isn't doing that. But like, this was within Adrian Griffin's control to not get to this point. We had the whole thing with Terry Stotts in August or whatever it was with the training camp stuff. Mm-hmm. We've had him redesigning or changing both the offensive schemes as well as the defensive schemes, which Dave touched on again, like in terms of changing their identity of who they were. Players clearly not responding to that early in the season. They then changed back their defense a little bit, from my understanding. Look, I don't watch every Bucks game, but again, just following people who do, that's the impression that I get, and from the Bucks games that I've seen. And then you've had all these other things that I mentioned before. So it's not surprising that we are here where we are here, but at the same time, like, Griffin was someone that Giannis endorsed at the time. I can't remember who reported it previously. That was on the timeline earlier today when all this was breaking, but apparently Giannis didn't want to play for Nurse, which is why Nurse didn't end up in Milwaukee and ended up in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So whilst I go back on my comment, I'll go back to my comment before where I don't necessarily want to blame Giannis. Like, some of this is kind of on him too, in the sense that Griffin was a Giannis endorsement. I assume Bud was out as well because Giannis was pretty pissed off in the playoffs too. So I get it. Like, you have to, at some point, do what your best guy wants to do. And when your best guy is Giannis, you kind of have to do what he has to, whatever he wants to do. But sometimes when you do that, bad decisions get made too.
Yeah, I think the bringing in Terry Stotts, obviously something that they did in an attempt to make Dame feel more comfortable and more at home. I mean, Terry Stotts and Dame spent 9 seasons together in Portland. And by all accounts, even though Portland always came up a little bit short, when they were trying to win a title with that core around Dame, like for the most part, they had a solid relationship. And that Terry Stotts, after spending training camp and the week and a half of preseason trying to find a common ground as, Adrian Griffin's right-hand man as a first-time head coach, and then said, I believe on the eve of their final preseason game, I'm out. I don't like the looks of this. I don't get what's going on here. It's not just Giannis, as y'all both are saying. It seems like Dame has also been struggling to figure out what his role is on this team all season long, and probably didn't love that this season started with his guy Terry Stotts walking out on whatever this season experiment was going to be. And Dame hit a classic, Dame time game winner in one of their recent games, but all season long, it seems like Dame has not fully fit into what they're doing. And then, Mark, you touched on the defense a little bit. We all wondered if, swapping out Drew Holiday and swapping in Dame would have an effect on one of the best defenses in the league over the last several years, and just how big that effect would be. And well, maybe Dame's presence and what he could do for them offensively could make up for that, or at least some of that. The Bucks have fallen all the way to 22nd in defensive rating so far this season. They are putrid. And when it comes to Giannis, and it clearly being something, it sounds like Giannis was having a problem with Griffin. Multiple of the reports that came out today saying Giannis was one of the players who had lost faith in Adrian Griffin's vision. In Shams' column, he had a quote from Giannis after one of their embarrassing losses. I can't remember which team it was, Houston or Utah, where they gave up 130 or so points to a middling offense. And Giannis saying, we need to know what we're doing out there defensively, and we don't know what we're doing. And talking about how are we a team that takes away the three-point line? Or are we a team that takes away interior looks? Or are we a team that does, elite work on the glass? Because we're not doing any of those things consistently. Who the hell are we as a defensive identity team? And if your super mega star player who you just brought in a new co-star for, who you just got to sign an extension, but has started to say things recently like, if I don't like what I see when I look around, and I don't see championship aspirations when I look around, then I'm not happy. Mm-hmm. Then yeah, if all evidence points to him losing faith in Adrian Griffin and his vision, sorry, Adrian Griffin, you're out. And all of that makes sense to me for a team that is absolutely, regardless of what Giannis may have said after they got bounced from the playoffs way earlier than he and everyone else expected last season, like, oh, it's not always championship or bust. No. You swung big to get Dame here. You have a superstar player in his prime. It is absolutely championship or bust. And yeah, they're 30-13, but they're only 6-5 so far in January. And they've played, like you said, Dave, some ugly games recently. So all of that adds up. Here's where it loses me. Okay, we're going to fire Adrian Griffin because Giannis is not bought in. Bobby Portis has a problem with him. Dame also probably has a problem with him. And we're going to replace him with Doc Rivers. Like, okay, I get it. And it sounds like also from that report that they brought Doc in as sort of like an unofficial babysitter, ear bender, influencer for a first-time head coach at Adrian Griffin to have his arm around him. But then that evolved into, the higher ups in Milwaukee saying, hey, maybe this guy should be our coach instead. But a coach who, other than, won championship with Boston nearly 20 years ago now, is notorious for not getting it done in playoff series when, by all accounts, his team, talent-wise on paper, has the upper hand. Yeah. That's where they lose me in all of this, if they do, in fact, hire Doc Rivers to replace him.
Yeah, that's very interesting, too, because Doc, his seat isn't even warm yet. Sitting in the broadcast booth. He's probably been on that broadcast at least 2 or 3 times total, since he started there at ABC. And definitely, real primetime games, they haven't really gotten into those. So, it's so interesting. And then his son, moved over there as well with him to ESPN also. So it's such an interesting dynamic. And what all this also shows me is the organization of the Bucks is with the players, period. That's it. They're with the players, man. They're not worried about the coaching or the staff. If the players ain't with it, they're not with it. They've made their stand and they've made their choice again and again and again, because these coaches are getting out of here, as you mentioned, because of the players, not because of – it's damn sure not because of their records. Their records are good. You know what I mean? Like I believe they're first in offense or close to it when it comes to the Bucks. Like they're not trash. That's not the point we're trying to make here. It's just that championship aspiration. It just feels different. But if the players ain't with it, then the organization isn't with it. And I find that interesting because you don't see that stance so often. You know what I mean? Like in the NBA. I'm not saying it doesn't exist because obviously it does, but you don't see it this egregious. Only person, the people who popped into my mind were like Jerry Buss. You know what I mean? Like that's what popped into my brain. Like, oh man, Magic's not happy. Well, fine, bye. You know where you got to go, dog. Not going to happen. You know, like that's the thing that pops into my head. Like it didn't even happen that way for Mike. You know what I mean? It's just like that. So they're for the players. And the coach, whoever comes in here, obviously Doc Rivers is the one, as you just mentioned, Matt, who they're looking at. And I'm with you a little bit on that. I like Doc Rivers probably more than some other people might like him, but you can't deny those points you just made at all because that is the absolute truth. Like when they get to those playoffs, and especially when they get to that second round, it's collapse city. You know, whether you're up 2-0, 3-1, it's been collapse city for Doc Rivers, and they haven't been able to move forward. There's a reason he's talking basketball and wasn't coaching it. You know what I mean? There's a reason for that because they could not move forward with Philadelphia, who they have that stank on them that I was talking about earlier with Nick Nurse. They definitely had that stank on them. Shout out to 70 points from Embiid. But yeah, man, like if that's who Giannis wants and he feels like he can get something out of Doc Rivers, then you kind of have to go try it. And again, the reason I think it doesn't make sense, man, because the things you just said, what you're just looking at, but the reason it makes total sense to me is because Giannis said it. Like that's like if he's here, then there it is. It's really that simple. Like, fine, I want him. He'll be the coach. We'll move forward. What will it look like? I don't know. I think their defense will improve under Doc, but I'm interested to see what it will look like with Dame. Dame is not a defensive style. I don't care what coach you bring in. That's not going to happen. So they're still going to have to find another kind of guard or another kind of player who is willing to play that kind of defense. So I feel like this isn't the last move. I feel like they're going to make some moves before the trade deadline to try to get some kind of defensive-minded player in here that can actually be serviceable and help this team.
Yeah, completely agree. I think personnel is still an issue. Where Griffin got it wrong was trying to institute a really aggressive scheme with the personnel he had, whereby you had these point-of-attack issues. Like, you probably shouldn't be doing that when Dave and Malik Beasley are starting in your backcourt. So that he got that wrong defensively straight up, which is why, again, part of the reason why we're here. And Dave, similar to you, I feel like I'm probably higher on Doc than what the consensus is. Not to say that I think he's a great coach or anything like that, but parking whoever they decide, whoever they decide to put as coach, whether it's Doc or someone else, that coach that's coming in is coming into an extremely, extremely difficult situation. Not just because it's like coming into a championship level sort of organization where that's the expectation, but coming into any team, whether it's championship level or, the Detroit Pistons or Charlotte Hornets, whoever it might be, like the dregs of the league, coming in mid-season without your own guys, not understanding what has happened but previously. Well, I guess Doc maybe does a little bit because he was part of their organization, let's say. But it's just going to be a tough job for him to come in the middle of the season and try to, steady the ship. And I say steady the ship, which is kind of silly to say given the Bucks are 30-13. Like this isn't the end of the world type situation. But assuming Doc comes in or whoever it is, I think Kenny Atkinson was also linked to this as well in the Shams report too. Whoever comes in is going to have just an unbelievably difficult job to try to achieve what the Bucks are ultimately trying to achieve. And to your point, Dave, like I don't even know if any of this really matters without personnel change, because there's only so many things you can do from a scheme point of view, whether it's on offense or defense. Like you can't out coach a defensive backcourt of Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley. Even if you go back to what they were doing defensively previously, it might help. You might not be 22nd, but are you going to be top 5 like you were previously? Probably not. You might be able to get from 22nd to 15th or something. But is 15th even good enough? Like, right. It's going to be a tough job for Doc, assuming he comes into it or whomever it may be.
And it's interesting that with that significant hit you're taking to your defensive perimeter, your defensive backcourt. Griffin made the bold call out of the gate this season to take Brook Lopez, who was Defensive Player of the Year runner-up last year, playing primarily a drop coverage system, He had Brook Lopez out on the perimeter and out guarding at the level of the screen and out setting traps. And you're like, really? Is that because you're trying to get Brook to help your now weakened, perimeter defense? Because that's not exactly the version of Brook Lopez that makes him a great defensive player. You make up for those weaknesses by having the interior defense and this interior size that you do. Between Giannis and Lopez and some of the other players they have. But I mean, this gamble, the holiday for Dame gamble, you're like, again, they're 30-13, but it doesn't matter what their regular season record is. If they get bounced early in the playoffs again, then it is a failure. Fascinating to see where this goes. If they do ultimately hire Doc Rivers as an in-season head coaching change, I will laugh. And I will be morbidly curious to find out what happens because, again, that's
and also, man, this is so weird. I don't know what's going to happen with Adrian Griffin either. Like, I'm very interested to see where his career ends up, man. This was like his first head coaching position. He couldn't even get through a year. You know what I mean? Like this, I'm interested to see what happens with him.
Wasn't this like his 15th interview or something stupid like that? I don't know what the exact number was, but he had been for a number of coaching jobs. And
he's been an assistant in the league basically since he retired. I think he's had a decade and a half of various assistant coaching jobs in 4 or 5 different organizations. And this was the first one. I agree. Our guy Fish said that he's not a big fan of the coaching recycling bin in the NBA. Like, if it's a mid-season coaching change, I understand that you would want to go with somebody who has a wealth of experience, which is what Doc does have. But I mean, at some point, you're like, you're going to hire this guy again? Really? You're going to hire this guy again? Like, where are the new people? Find new fucking Pat Riley found Eric Spoelstra in a room full of old VHS tapes, and he was like, "You're my head coach now."
Van Gundy's.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everybody doesn't have the evil genius brilliance and balls that Pat Riley has. Okay, so obviously huge news, obviously affecting a Bulls Central Division rival. So we wanted to touch on that to start out today. But of course, plenty going on in the world of Bulls trade rumors and news as well. So we will get to that on the other side of our first break. While we are doing that, y'all know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube, we appreciate it. Do it for our friend Greg Braggs, who is not even wearing a hat today, the poor bastard. There he is. And make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel as well. Big Dave, tell the Bulls fans where they can score dope tickets.
Well, I'll throw it back to you. Matt Peck, what time is it?
I believe it's Game Time Who.
Oh, yes, it is. Remote Peck is more chill when it comes to the Game Time Hoot. I enjoy it. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, ladies and gentlemen. Game Time is the fast and the easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, all your music, all your comedy, and theater events that are right near you with those killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from the seat, which is my favorite thing in the world, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those tickets, y'all. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It is not the place. No. It is the place to buy those last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, hockey, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and much, much more. And with the zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time does the selecting for an average savings of, drumroll, Matt Peck, please, 18%. It's a nice amount of savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you will always, and I mean always, get the best price available. So go ahead and take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHGO, and get your wonderful self $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code CHGO, and get your wonderful self $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Because Marquette, what time is it?
Game Time who?
CHGO Bulls Day also brought to you by our friends at Midtown Athletic Club. All of you healthy body and mind people in this fresh calendar year, looking for a new spot to make yourself feel better, check out one of Midtown's 4 Chicagoland locations. Palatine in the northwest burbs, Bannockburn in the North Shore, Willowbrook in the southwest suburbs, and, of course, the Midtown Athletic Club and Hotel in the middle of Bucktown and Lincoln Park. It's Greg Braggs approved.
Yes, it is.
Palatine has launched a multi-million-dollar transformation of the club, which will be completed very soon, later this year. Midtown is offering a no initiation fee offer this January at their Bannockburn, Palatine, and Willowbrook locations. Whether you're just a single person looking to do something good for yourself, get some exercise, maybe you're looking for a family deal, maybe you want to take the kids to some classes, all of that kind of stuff is something you can find at Midtown Athletic Club. They've got super luxurious locker rooms with wet and dry saunas. That's what I'm talking about. The premium amenities, outdoor and indoor pools, plus hot tubs. And can I get a hot tub? Yes, you can at Midtown Athletic Club. Wonderful features. Of course, we know about the tennis courts, both indoor and outdoor. Our guys Carm and Hogue from CHGO Bears, big fans of those. Pickleball, basketball courts. Our guy Greg Braggs loves using the basketball courts at Midtown. Maybe sometimes there will be a tooth casualty involved, but that wasn't the court's fault, right, Braggs?
Nope. No easy buckets.
No easy buckets. Playing that Ron Artest defense.
Yep.
Also, the CHGO Bears crew, Braggs, and along with the CHGO Sports Pod, hosted by our guy Kevin Kadick, are going to be doing shows live from the Midtown Bannockburn on Thursday, the 25th. The show is complimentary to enter. Guests of the show are complimentary to enter that day. So come check out the space and catch the show. That's exciting, Braggs.
Yeah, fired up for it.
Day after tomorrow.
That's right. And it's close to Lake Forest, so maybe I'll pop by Hallis Hall and give them my thoughts.
Do you know what your thoughts are? Have you figured them out yet?
Yeah, they change. They change day to day.
Honestly, dude, so do mine. I don't know where I stand and how I feel as a Bears fan right now.
But yeah, definitely come out to Midtown Bannockburn. We're excited for it.
Check it out. Also, head over to midtown.com/CHGO to find out more and to tour the Midtown Athletic Club nearest you. Before we dive into some Bulls trade talk, also wanted to make mention of our CHGO Bulls takeover. Speaking of fun CHGO events coming up in the near future, February 6th, Bulls taking on the Timberwolves at the Madhouse. We will be there. We got a group bundle of tickets in section 105. Come hang out with us at the Bulls T-Wolves game. We're going to do a pregame meetup at a bar, TBD on which bar, but it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of us in West Loop, just down the street from the Madhouse on Madison Avenue. So come hang out, get a ticket, watch the game with us, and it'll be a fun time. Also, of course, UCHGO diehards will get a discounted price on that ticket. And, you know, when you're talking about bang for your buck, Section 105, the price point on the CHGO takeover tickets is real nice.
Yeah, and even more so, Matt, the team that the Bulls are playing. You're not going to watch a bum team. You're going to watch a legitimate team, the best team record-wise in the Western Conference right now, with Anthony Edwards, who Matt and I had the pleasure of watching up close. It's worth your time to see up close, ladies and gentlemen. My God. So, yeah, I'm excited. And then you just saw Cat drop 62. Oh, my God. Like, yes, absolutely. This is a game that you want to be at to go see. UC should be rocking, and we will add to that. Come hang out with us, man, and add your voice to it, baby.
Indeed. Our guy Braggs threw the link to our CHGO Bulls takeover event in the comments section. So if you are here in the comments and want to come hang out with us, there's the link. Grab yourself a ticket, February 6th. And yes, Eli, we will talk about the Bulls. We just had to talk about the crazy freaking Bucks firing their head coach first, because that was nuts. But let's get to Bulls stuff. Nothing massively different in the last few days as far as the winds of possible trades going on as we near the 2-week mark, removed from the February 8th trade deadline. We did get sort of a doubling down on what we've heard primarily on the lack of suitors for Zach LaVine from Matt Moore of the Action Network in his latest column from yesterday or the day before. In case you missed that, here's what Matt Moore had to say. If you have that one, Bragg. Still no takers for Zach LaVine, and there's increasing expectation of him remaining in Chicago. Fair or not, LaVine is seen as a distressed asset on account of his play style, injury history, and most importantly, contract that takes him through 2026.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is just the latest in several reports from several different sources that are saying very similar, if not exactly the same thing, which is that Zach LaVine, there aren't a lot of fish biting in that pond right now. What do you make of this, Mark?
Well, I don't know. Look, there's still time. There's still time, right? So there's still 2 and a bit weeks until the trade deadline. Things can change. Maybe things change. But at this point, every data point that we have, every credible reporter that has gone on to talk about the Zach situation, whether it's national people, whether it's our local guys like KC, they've been very clear on this, that prepare yourselves for Zach being here beyond the trade deadline. Oh, and by the way, we as the NBA, the league more generally, don't want Zach, either because we don't like Zach the player or we don't like Zach the contract or whatever the situation may be. It varies from team to team. But very clearly, the message that we as fans should be accepting and receiving and hearing, all that sort of stuff, is that the league is not interested in taking on someone like Zach LaVine. And if we are steadfast in the situation whereby you need to move off him, if you want to, I say need, I guess that's the first question. Is it a need or want situation? But assuming you want or need to get rid of Zach LaVine, you're not getting a haul, basically. I was going to say the haul that you want to get isn't coming, but you're not getting a haul. You probably, I don't know, maybe you need to attach stuff to get rid of Zach at this point. Like, again, based on everything we keep hearing, which is not very positive, maybe that's just where we're at. And like, I'm sort of coming to acceptance on this situation that I'm not going to be someone who just discredits these reports or think that Zach is worth more than what he is, because if the market is saying, no, he's not, then that's what the market is saying. And that's how we should be forming our opinions based on that. So it's concerning. It's not ideal, particularly given LaVine's stance in the first 19 games and, the way he carried himself in those first 19 games. And I'm assuming he still wants out of here, again, based on what KC has said. And I'm paraphrasing in some senses, but it sounds like both parties, LaVine and the Bulls, still want some sort of separation, whether it happens now or in the offseason or whenever it may be. Like, that's still the plan. So I'm assuming he doesn't want to be here. If he doesn't want to be here, then I don't want him to be here as a fan. But it doesn't sound like he can go either because of the situation.
Well, you know what? Let me ask a question first before I say what I want to say. But Marquez, do you think that we should be changing, or even the Bulls front office should kind of be changing their mentality of how they're looking at Zach and his value? Because when I hear these kind of things, I think, like, when they say there's no value for him around the league, I think they're just like they're not going to give him what you want, for to trade him. So is it something that we should be coming to grips with? Like, we should be okay with trading him and not getting something great back for him, but being okay with that?
Yeah, look, coming back to a point you made before, Dave, about like the Bucks and them being ruthless, and if the vibes weren't right and things just weren't harmonious in the locker room or whatever the situation may be, and just moving on, like, in some respects, you could take that line of thinking and apply it to the Bulls in a number of different matters. Whether people, I certainly know people would do have that, attributed that thought to Billy Donovan. Can you do the same thing with Zach LaVine as an example, a guy that doesn't want to be here? The Bulls are seemingly trying to do that, whereby they're trying to trade him now. They tried to trade him in the offseason, maybe even tried to trade him at the previous deadline. But to your point, like, I do think there is an element of this of saving face in some respects, like not moving on from a guy who was a 2-time All-Star for, an expiring deal and maybe a few second-round picks or something like that. Like, there probably is a PR element to this where the Bulls don't want to settle for something that doesn't read well in a press release. I think there's an element to this. But, beyond that as well, like, obviously Zach can be a good player, has been a good player, can add value. So I also understand from them wanting to do the due diligence and to extract as much value for the team, putting aside all like that PR that PR side of things, I guess, or the way that people would view the trade. I think AK and Mark Eversley are right in trying to extract as much value for Zach LaVine as well. Not just because it makes them look better, but because it's the best thing to do for the team. But to your point, like, do they or should they adjust their ask or their want in a Zach trade? I think they might need to if they want to move on from him in the next 2 weeks or 6 months or 12 months or whatever it might be. Like, Zach still has 3 years on his deal post this season. And then if the situation remains, if the market remains as is, that context stays as is, then maybe the Bulls need to just assess the situation and realize what the situation is and take less than they ideally want just to move on.
Yeah. It's interesting that you guys both brought up whether or not the Bulls have to and or should shift their frame of mind as far as what they might be looking for in return for Zach, if they and he are still very much, aiming towards finding him a new team, because that was some of the other latest Zach LaVine updates that we got from, NBA people who have a lot of, birds reporting back to them from all over a bunch of different teams. You may have missed it because it was behind ESPN Plus paywall, but Bobby Marks this morning put out his giant NBA trade deadline preview for every NBA team. And obviously he had a lot of thoughts on Zach in his Bulls trade line preview. And I just wanted to kind of hit a couple of the highlights. He framed it as the Bulls need to ask themselves 3 important questions when it comes to Zach. One, are they willing to salary dump Zach for his contract in exchange for expiring salaries and perhaps a future first-round pick? If so, does free agency offer the opportunity to reshape the Bulls roster if all you're getting out of a Zach trade is dumping salary and then getting yourself some cap space? He also mentioned, you could also free up cap space if you do just let DeMar go. Maybe you all add even more if Lonzo Ball is deemed to have a career-ending injury. Then all of a sudden the Bulls could be looking at $50 million in cap space this summer. But Bobby also noted that the 2024 free agent class that we have approaching this summer is fairly weak. So maybe the Bulls would look to trade Zach now for young players under contract for at least one more year instead of draft capital. And then this was the last question that Bobby Marks posed to the Bulls front office that I think is really, really important and interesting. Braggs, I think you have this one in a graphic. Finally, is Chicago's best option to wait until the offseason when there could be improved trade options? The risk there is that because of the new roster restrictions that start in the offseason, high-spending teams like the Lakers can only match dollar for dollar in salary. In addition, Los Angeles could not aggregate contracts going out if its team's salary exceeds the second apron. So those are a couple of very important wrinkles in the new CBA that's going into effect this offseason, which could affect the return that the Bulls might get and the amount of legitimate offers the Bulls might get for LaVine if they wait until this offseason to trade him instead of trading him between now and 2 weeks from now. What do you make of that, Dave?
I mean, it's such a weird position, man. Part of me wants to say, and I guess I'm thinking of it from the standpoint of where AK and Mark Eversley have said what they want is they want the postseason. That's what they want. And I do too. It's what they want. And to get there and to, get to that postseason, we've seen the team that the Bulls, give the Bulls the best shot to get there. And it doesn't include Zach LaVine. So if your shot is to make the postseason, then do you take that hit? How bad do you really want to make it? Does Zach even hinder you from that? Because again, I like to point out when Zach was here, they still went like 5-2 when Zach was with the Bulls and he was still playing. They still went 5-2 when he came back. But it does feel different, and I think we all can agree with that. It does feel different. It does look different. We saw it yesterday in that game, Phoenix game yesterday. It looks and it feels a little bit different as far as the cohesiveness of that team. So are they comfortable with making that trade and saying, we know we're a better playoff team without Zach on our squad? We're going to go all in that way. Or do they say, maybe we can make the play in and, still be cool with Zach on our team and wait till this off season and then, get a better deal for him and, some better assets because he's valuable. It's just the league doesn't want to give up nothing for him right now at this point in time. But they know in that offseason, they could probably get something of better value for a guy like Zach LaVine. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. And that's why they're paid millions of dollars that they're paid to make these decisions, because it's a tough one. So Zach is going to come back and do what he can, obviously, to help this team try to win. He is that kind of player that wants to help this team try to win and be better. We saw there's a way he does it where he ramps himself up to it that kind of slows stuff down sometimes, you know what I mean, on the Bulls, where there's an extra pass that shouldn't be made, where there's a shot we think he should be taking that he's not aggressively taking. But when he gets ramped up to that level, because, we've seen Zach at that level, especially in that second half of that season of last year, he just looked super duper elite. He looked absolutely ridiculous. But he hasn't looked that way this year. Came out flat, then he got injured, then was trying to build himself back up, didn't look quite right. I believe he was averaging 17 before he went out. Still didn't look quite right. It's such a tough situation, man. It really is, man, because when I wrote that article that he's playing for his career, this is exactly what I meant by this stuff. Like right here, this is exactly what I meant. Yeah, this is just what I meant by that, man. Like these kind of situations for him. So it's a tough one. I don't have the answers. Honestly, I just have more questions than I do answers, which is why I was asking Mark K questions. Like, because I really don't know. But they're going to be in that situation where he'll be healthy very soon. And you can't not play him. You have to put that kind of dude on the basketball floor and see what happens with your team. Does it help? Does it hurt? How long will it take him to get back to that level? Will he still be here on the February 8th? Is he still playing to be traded? Is that still the mentality for him? Does he still think that there's a hope that can happen? Are the Bulls even still looking? Were they looking at packages, putting it? I don't know, man, but it's a lot going on, and we're going to get answers soon because it's a sprain. He will be back. He was supposed to be out 1 to 2 weeks. So we're going to find out soon, man, about what it is really with Zach LaVine. But Mark K, like, it's just not an easy answer that for this situation.
Well, I agree, Dave. Like, I certainly don't have the answers, and I can't answer the questions. Only really Zach and AK can, just in some respects. But I think these are the questions that need to be asked. And the first question be, does Zach want to be here? Like, that's a question AK, ownership, etc. need to ask of Zach. That's a question he needs to ask of himself. If the answer is yes, that he wants to remain and he would be happy to do so, then okay, that's one thing. But if his answer is no, and your intent as the Bulls is to re-sign DeMar DeRozan, whether people agree with this or not, like if the Bulls want to bring back DeMar and if they want to re-sign Patrick, then that's going to cost the Bulls. And if you don't move Zach LaVine now and you don't move him at the draft and you have to enter into the offseason with Zach on your books to re-sign DeMar, to re-sign Patrick, and to have Zach still on the books, the Bulls will be over the tax in all likelihood. But let's just park the Lonzo thing for the moment, because then that could change that calculus a little bit. But assuming, Lonzo isn't deemed as a career-ending injury, the Bulls are over the tax at that point. Now, they wouldn't be charged or be paying tax dollars at that point. It would come calling, at the end of that league season. But they would be over the tax at that stage, meaning they would have to move someone. Or if they don't want to be over the tax in that situation, then by keeping Zach, you're having to say goodbye to someone else, whether that's Patrick, DeMar, maybe someone else. So these are the fundamental questions that Bulls need to ask. Does Zach want to be here? Do we want to re-sign DeMar? Do we want to re-sign Patrick Williams? If the answers to those questions, or depending on those answers to those questions, that determines what you need to do right now. If Zach doesn't want to be here, if DeMar and Patrick want to be here and you want to keep them, then to me, it's a very simple decision that you have to move Zach now. And if doing so means that, instead of getting 2 first-round picks, you get 1 first-round pick, or instead of getting 2 first-round picks, instead of getting 1 first-round pick, you get multiple seconds, like whatever the scenario is. If he doesn't want to be here, I've been very blunt about this and clear about this, but I don't want players who don't want to be here to be here.
Yeah,
to your point, Dave, I'm okay with them going into a rebuild. I'm also okay with them trying to win games. Like you can you can talk me into both sides, and I know how you both feel about both situations. So one's the angel, one's the devil in this scenario. I'll let people decide as to who that is, but you can talk me into it. But the point being, like to what you noted before, Dave, like if you want to go for it now and Zach doesn't want to be here, then why prolong this thing? Just make the move now, cut the situation, move on. It's probably best for both sides in that scenario, and let's just reset and pivot from there. But again, it all comes back to Zach and what he wants.
All right, let's take our second break there. Still plenty to get to. DeMar DeRozan has popped up in recent trade rumor updates. So has Caruso. So has Andre Drummond. So has Dosunmu. So we can touch on all of those after the break. If you didn't do it the first time around, hit that thumb right now. Give us a like. We appreciate it. It makes our guy Greg Braggs very happy. CHGO Bulls today brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. Man, it's sad that we only have 3 more football games and then football's over. But we have 3 more football games. We've got a Sunday AFC and NFC championship on deck. And you know what makes that more fun? Making bets on it. Making money on it. You know, I mean, we also have a Bulls game that Sunday night, but you know that my betting focus is going to be on the NFL. just so I have a nice balance. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs and, of course, also the NBA. They're bringing you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download that DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code CHGO. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook. With that code CHGO, the crown is yours. In addition to leaning towards Baltimore covering that spread against Kansas City this Sunday, because I just kind of feel it. I feel Baltimore. I feel like it might not be the tight game that we saw between the Chiefs and the Bills this past weekend. But on top of that, my official DraftKings pick of the week, because it is a Tuesday, and we like doing picks of the week on Tuesday, I'm looking back to the NBA. I'm looking at Thunder Blazers tonight. Speaking of spreads, it's a big one. 13.5 is what the Thunder are being asked to cover against the lowly Blazers. And you know what? You only live once. Betting on giant spreads to cover is fun. Give me the Thunder to cover 13.5 against the Blazers. Because that Thunder team, look, I mean, Shea might put up a 40-point triple-double in 3 quarters and call it a night. But you know that Shea is going to come out determined after seeing a 70-point game from Embiid. You got 60 or so from Karl Anthony Towns. The NBA stars shined bright on Monday. You know SGA is going to want to shine his own star. So give me a very comfortable win for the Thunder over the Blazers. That's my DraftKings pick of the week. Betting on big spreads is fun. Give me 13.5. Let's go, Thunder.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, when Matt's making all that big bucks and doing it right, then he can take himself to get a brand new vehicle. And the place he can take to get a brand new vehicle, ladies and gentlemen, is Ray Chevy, because that is our partner, Ray Chevrolet. Oh, and they are ringing in the new year with one of their best offers, and they're doing it all month long, all month. Oh, shout out Lionel Richie. Make your way to Ray Chevrolet on Route 12 in Fox Lake to join in on the savings and to start your Ray Resolution. As one of the top selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you're always able, and I mean always able, to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. But right now, they're trying to make room for those 2024 models. So that means those current 2023s, they got to go. Plus, you can find the perfect tailgate vehicle at Ray Chevy because they have over 100 new Silverados available with prices starting at $19,495. Y'all, that is under the $20K right there. Or take up to $10,000 off. You heard what I said, $10,000 off of the new 2023 Silverado. And to top that all off, because you know Ray ain't never done, they are pricing over 125 vehicles under $20,000. Seriously, y'all. Can prices get more affordable? Let me ask you, Matt. Can they get more affordable?
I don't think they can.
And he is absolutely right. But I tell you what it can get. It can get more fun and more awesome. Because Ray said, since we're doing all that, free oil change. He tossed that at you right there. Bam, right there. Yeah, that's what he do. It gets a little better. Because all you got to do is mention CHGO when you're scheduling your oil change at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake, and they will hook you up. Just mention CHGO. You will get a free oil change at Ray Chevrolet. So start your new year off right. Visit Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or RayChevrolet.com to start your Ray resolution. They have been serving the community since 1963. Find new roads and let those roads lead you right to Ray Chevrolet.
All right, plowing ahead. Other updates about Bulls players who may or may not be on the move. Let's touch on Caruso briefly. I feel like there's not a whole lot to discuss with him. In his big trade deadline preview, Bobby Marks made note of Caruso, the fact that he's on another very team-friendly salary next season. Marks said that the Bulls should not have any urgency to move off of Caruso's contract unless a team is willing to surrender multiple first-round picks or young players on a controllable contract. Matt Moore, in the same report that touched on the lack of market for Zach LaVine, said that the Bulls continue to shut down calls for Alex Caruso, which is more of what we've heard. Have you guys changed how you feel about Caruso and where the Bulls stand on not trading him at all recently?
No, I haven't changed anything. I told you that I quit talking about it because once Torrey Craig went down, I knew it definitely wasn't going to happen. But yes, I still feel like they should trade him, and get some nice value for this guy. And because you can still be a formidable team even without Alex Caruso. Of course, you won't be as good. Of course, your defense is going to suffer, but you can still be a play-in team, man, without Alex Caruso and still build towards your future.
Yeah, I feel similar. I think, I've been on the trade Caruso bandwagon, not because I don't realize what he does or disrespect his game or any of that nonsense, because I think everyone can very clearly see how valuable he is to this team. But I think you noted there, Matt, like that there shouldn't be any urgency to, not that were your words, but Bobby Marks or whomever it was. I think there should be some urgency in dealing Alex Caruso, because we're in this situation with DeMar DeRozan where you didn't maybe look at him dealing him at the last deadline. Now you get into a situation where he's on his expiring contract, and we assume the value of an expiring contract is less compared to someone who has maybe 1.5 or 2 years left on the deal, which is what Caruso has. So this time next year, is Caruso going to garner the same level of trade interest or potential assets in a deal now compared to in a year's time? Like, I don't know the answer to that question, but I also don't maybe want to explore the answer to that question knowing Caruso's injury history and those sorts of things. And I guess the Bulls have to be urgent about it too, in the sense that, are you prepared to pay this dude his next contract? Like, no one is talking about this, and everyone who wants to keep Alex Caruso keeps just assuming that Alex Caruso wants to stay or will stay with Chicago. But why are we going to be assuming that is true? Now, if the Bulls make the play-in but miss out on the playoffs, and if things are trending again next season, similarly, if this whole continuity thing continues and the Bulls are in that still same to 7 to 10, 11, 12 range, like, why is Caruso going to re-up here in Chicago? And if he doesn't, have you missed out on your opportunity to get some real stuff for Caruso? So that's my long way of saying, no, I haven't changed my opinion. I think the Bulls need to have some urgency around the Caruso thing, and I think it's still clinically insane that they are not, taking calls on Caruso.
It's way more enticing to get yourself a Caruso right now for a back third of season and playoff run, and then also have that player on your books for under $10 million next season. Like that value, as you just kind of touched on, Mark, goes away if the Bulls wait and hold on to Caruso. Thousand Eyes 85 in the comments saying no one's giving the Bulls a first for AC. Meanwhile, Anthony saying, am I crazy to think AC can get us a first round pick from a playoff hungry team? No, like I tend to lean towards it. I think they absolutely can get a first for Alex Caruso. I do. Yeah. I don't know if they could get 2 firsts for him, which we've heard in some pockets of NBA trade rumor mills. But I think they could get a first for him if they dealt him within the next 2 weeks. Shout out also to Dwayne Knight. Appreciate the kind words. Thanks for tuning in. Let's move, gentlemen, to DeMar. There have been a few different updates on DeMar in a few different corners recently. Matt Moore in that same update mentioned some insiders wonder if DeMar DeRozan on an expiring contract will have a new home by the All-Star break. I believe it was also Sam Amico of Amico Hoops, who yesterday in his report said that the Sixers, Heat, and Knicks are all expected to show interest in DeMar DeRozan. Maybe after today's trade where the Heat go out and get themselves Terry Rozier, that changes things for them, and maybe they are no longer interested in DeMar. But that's 3 playoff-bound teams reportedly interested in DeMar DeRozan. Bobby Marks also touched on DeMar in his deadline preview, saying the Bulls could certainly hold on to DeMar past the deadline and look to work out a new contract leading up to or during free agency. But there's a risk of the Bulls losing DeMar for nothing if he's on this roster past February 8th. What do you guys? Where do you guys sit right now on DeMar and whether the Bulls should keep him or trade him in the next 2 weeks? Mark,
I'm about to say I want to hear Mark K on this one.
I am a DeMar loyalist, so let's be clear on that. But putting biases aside, like I think if you're moving on from DeMar and the plan is still to move on from Zach, then you need to have a good plan in place to find someone who you can put next to Kobe to support him from an on-ball perspective. Because people will get their wish in that scenario whereby DeRozan's gone and all the late game situations go to Kobe. But you know what the defenses are doing though in those scenarios too as well. Like they're sending 2, they're sending 3 to Kobe, and like what does that do for his development? So I think someone like DeMar is super helpful for this team. Whether others agree or not is remains to be seen. But if you have a plan to get another ball handler to put next to Kobe, next season and beyond, fine, move on from DeMar if you want. If you can get some real stuff in a trade, that is. Now that's an important question. Like what potential options do you have in a trade? If I can get some real stuff that help, cool, let's trade DeRozan. If I can't, then I'm not trading DeRozan, particularly if I am trying to win. Also, I'm not subscribed to this absolute theory that losing DeMar in the offseason, assuming that even is the case, I still think the Bulls will want to extend DeMar. But let's just assume that DeMar wants a stupid, huge contract that's not fair and the Bulls don't want to do it and they can't trade him for something that's reasonable in the trade market. You're only getting either bad salary or, shitty second round picks, whatever it might be. In said scenario, losing DeMar in free agency isn't necessarily a bad thing because of the point you raised before, Matt, about potentially it creates cap space. Now, again, there's not a lot of great free agents out there, but it gives you more flexibility, more optionality to do other things. And I would rather lose DeMar in free agency for nothing than taking on bad contracts just to say you've traded him or signing him to a deal that doesn't make sense in an extension. So I would be shocked if DeMar is moved. I would only do it if it makes sense and you can get positive value back for him. I question if you can get positive value back for him, but yeah, I don't necessarily think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't want to trade him. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't want to trade him right now, only because I'm noticing just how the team. He is adored by that team. He is beloved by those players in the locker room. That is who they hug. That is who Kobe loves and hugs all the time. This is who Patrick Williams and Dalen Terry hang out with and talk to. This is who Vooch knows. You know what I mean? He has too much connective tissue to be removed from this team and them to still survive. He's too connected to this team right now. And that's just off the court I'm talking about. On the court, obviously, you all know it when it's DeMar DeRozan time. It could come in the second, third, or fourth quarter. You know when it's DeMar DeRozan time, like to get busy and do his thing. So, yeah, I don't think they're in a position to let him go, especially, again, if they're trying to make that postseason and do something in the postseason. You can't do it by letting DeMar DeRozan go. Like, it's just not going to happen that way. Of course, I'm sure, Marquet wants him to go. So, Pat Williams can, finally be freed up to be great. But I don't think it's got to be the case here, man. Like you've got to hold on to this kind of ball player. And I think on another kind of level, he's kind of earned that right here in Chicago to kind of walk out and make his own kind of decision on his own, because he has been stellar during his time here. He has been absolutely stellar on and off the court as far as what he's done on the court and what he's done for the young players off the court. He's been absolutely stellar. So I feel like he's earned an opportunity to, leave on kind of his terms or stay on his terms, however he wants it to, however it's going to work out. Personally, I'm okay with him leaving as a free agent. I'm completely all right with that. I feel like that'll be your time. That'll be your tenure. You know what I mean? We appreciate everything that you did. You know, go forth, be fruitful and multiply. like, you know, do your thing. It's great. But I feel like he's earned his time to finish it out here with the Bulls, because, man, he's just too connected. He's just too connected, y'all. Like, he really is.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point, I guess. Not I guess. It is a fair point. It's just one that does not move me at all.
Yeah.
Where I am emotionally as a Bulls fan right now. Yes, DeMar is a wonderful vet who is a wonderful teammate and mentor to some of these younger guys, you know, who are starting to blossom. Kobe in particular, maybe even Dalen Terry. You can say that a little bit. And we know that Dalen has already formed a strong bond with DeMar. Sure. But to me, the only thing that I'm thinking about is if they keep DeMar through this trade deadline, and whatever they can get for him, you know, an interesting player and a second round pick, like whatever. I don't care, honestly, about the return as much as I care about if he's here past February 8th, they are going to sign him to a new contract this summer, and it is more continuity, and I'm going to go up to the roof of my condo and jump the F off, because I am done. I am done with this. I am done with the 9th seed again. I swear to God. And if they have DeMar for play-in tournament again, they're gonna sign him to a new contract this summer, and I'm gonna hate it. I don't hate DeMar. I will hate the Bulls front office for doing that, because we all know what this ceiling is, and it's the fucking play-in tournament, and that ain't good enough for me. It's not.
Well, I spoke about before about not dealing in absolutes, but like, I'm not going to say extending DeMar is a bad thing until I know what the numbers are. Like, if it's a completely fine and reasonable deal and you nail all the other periphery moves around that, then it can work. I also am not going to sit here and say a life without DeMar beyond this season is wrong either, because if you do have a good contingency plan in place, if you can get another younger guy that you can put next to Kobe to support Kobe, and I think this gets overlooked in the whole we just want to give Kobe the ball now kind of thing that, you know, 99% of the fan base seemingly has at this point. Like, Kobe is succeeding because he's playing next to guys like Vooch and DeMar who enable him to do his thing. I'm not saying they're the only reasons that Kobe is doing what he is doing, because he is, in his own right, has been fantastic. But having that pick and roll partner for Kobe to operate with Vooch is extremely important, because Kobe gets downhill in pick and roll. That's his game. Similarly with DeRozan, like, DeMar draws two all the time. That helps someone like Kobe. So the point being, I'm cool with moving on with DeMar. I'm cool with moving on with Vooch or whomever it may be. But you better have a good idea as to how you're replacing those guys, because their replacements are going to be critical in making life easier for guys like Kobe and Pat and Io and those sorts of things, which aids and helps in their development. So irrespective if we're talking about going for the 8th seed again or going for the rebuild again, whatever it might be, you still need to be nailing your moves. You still need to be making or putting together your best basketball team around your younger guys, because you need to support them in their development, which is what the previous regime didn't do with the last iteration of this rebuild, which I don't want to witness again. Like, that's the thing I don't want to see again. I don't want to be in a world where Kobe is dominating every single possession because the Bulls don't have another option, which is why I valued DeMar the way I do. But if you're telling me you can get a 25-year-old or a Jaden Ivey or someone else who can step in that DeMar role to put next to Kobe and move on from DeMar, cool, I'll sign up with that. But until you tell me what that looks like, that's where my reservation is.
Guys, we're running short on time, so I did want to touch on these two players real quick and get y'all's thoughts on them. Matt Moore, in that same report, mentioned that Dosunmu is a name that several teams could be calling the Bulls about in the next couple of weeks. Personally, real quick, you can't have him. The way that Io has been playing this season and the contract the Bulls just signed him to, that is a valuable piece worth keeping, regardless of who is on your team next season. You can't have him. Also, the always hilarious Lakers stan Dave McMenamin mentioned that the Lakers are interested in Andre Drummond so that they have another option for guarding Joker in the playoffs. So many things about that report are hilarious to me. What playoffs? You see where the Lakers are? You see where they're headed? I look, Andre Drummond has been a fun experiment for a couple of seasons. I wouldn't hate to see him go if the Lakers are so desperate that they would give the Bulls something of value for Drummond as a half-season loaner. So here's where I stand. You can't have Io. If the Lakers want to give us something for Drummond, great. What do you guys think?
Yeah. They could give me something for Andre Drummond, absolutely. And Drummond has been really solid this year and really, really has. Like, you can't just poo-poo 20 points and 20 rebounds like it ain't nothing. Like, he has been awesome coming in off of the bench and filled in really, really excellently when he was in the starting lineup. So he did honestly a great job, and it continues to do so. His antics have been less. He's been more 40% on the antics and more 60% on the solid basketball this year, which is really awesome for me to see. So yeah, he's earned that right to be looked at by other teams. I really hope he gets another contract. I really do. But yeah, if you're going to make a deal, if you're going to give me something for Andre Drummond, I'll be listening to you and would make that deal if it was right.
Yeah, look, Andre Drummond, potential free agent, or will be a free agent in the offseason. Are the Bulls bringing him back? Does he want to come back to Chicago and be a backup again to Vooch? I doubt it. I guess money talks at some point, but if you can give me 2 or 3 seconds for Andre Drummond, yeah, I'm doing it. Now, I don't love Andre Drummond, the basketball player. I love Andre Drummond, the person. Irrespective of my issues with Drummond, the person, the basketball player, I would do a deal like that because you might be losing him in the offseason as well. So do the Andre thing. Io, no, you absolutely keep him. People have banged on about the Bulls' development or the lack thereof of their younger guys. Io is showing real signs. We know what Kobe has done this season. I think Pat has the ability to do, some good things as well. So I would not be moving on from any of those three. So yeah, Io is a Bull next season.
Yeah. To me, with Drummond and his perspective, I just don't see him wanting to stick around Chicago. We haven't heard any reports like Drummond doesn't like being here, but we have heard things about Drummond saying, I still think I'm a starting caliber center in this league. And so if he sees some options this summer that are one of these two things, sticking with a aging veteran center in a backup role, but getting to do it for the similar, low veteran salary the Bulls have been paying for the last few years, but on a real contending team, which the Bulls are not, that's more enticing than staying here. Or a team that is desperately looking for a legitimate center and maybe even starting center, and Drummond, taking a salary that pays him more like a starting center and gives him that opportunity to prove that he still has that left in the tank. Both of those things that he could get on his, offer table this summer are more enticing than staying here. So, if I'm anticipating how Drummond's thinking about this upcoming summer, and you can get some value for him now, do it. Freaking do it, AK.
Just do it.
All right. Wow. We covered a lot of ground. We are out of time. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out if you haven't done it yet. Helps us out a lot. Make sure you also subscribe to that CHGO Sports YouTube channel. Get yourself a ticket. Get your friends a ticket who are CHGO Bulls Takeover coming up February 6th. Bulls Wolves. Going to be a good time. And we got a fresh HQ for y'all on deck tomorrow, correct, Mr. Mark?
We do. I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. Hopefully there's more breaking news around the league so that the league can give us something to talk about. William and I will be on the airwaves tomorrow, so looking forward to that.
Do you want me on as a special guest?
Ideally, no. That would be not ideal. But look, if the schedule says, Braggs, that you're producing, then I will accept what the schedule says.
Okay. And nobody mentioned my music reference in the thumbnail. I'm not offended.
Hey, that's Dave's territory.
Because Jelly recognized it in the chat.
I didn't even see it till right now, man. Like, honestly, I didn't even see it. Congrats, well done. There you go.
Thought if you wanted to sing the song, you could.
Go hit it. Kick it off, Brad.
You want me to sing it? You want me to sing it?
I do.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
What is happening?
Take me
No.
Atlantic on a glory night. We're Bulls Nation of tomorrow. Dreams away in the wind of trade. Wind of trade.
Man.
Yes, that was worth it for me.
I had to annoy Mark K one time before the show was over. There was no way we were leaving without me not doing
I
this.
thought we were going to go an entire show without me having to trash you, but you couldn't help yourself, Rags. You couldn't help yourself. My
Okay.
God.
I mean, don't quit your day job, Rags, but I admire the commitment. I
Thank you.
admire
I do
it.
too.
No
Thank
one
Well done, sir.
no one commits to commitment more than Greg Braggs Jr.
you.
when he's doing a
Thank
bit.
That's a fact. He's all in. He's all in. I love it.
Much love always to our guy Braggs. Enjoy when he swings through CHGO Bulls. Follow Mark on Twitter, MK Hoops. Big Davis at Bow, BAWL Sports. I'm Bulls_Peck. Follow our guy Will the Goat as well, Will_Gottlieb. Read his coverage at allchgo.com. We're CHGO_Bulls. HQ on deck tomorrow, 5:30 Central Time. And then we will see y'all again Thursday night for a late one. Bulls, Lakers, 9:30 tip-off, 9 p.m. pregame. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Much love and appreciation, Bulls fans. See you, Rep. Be good.
We all silly like the mayor.